you check the children? Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And Jaime Fuego's here.
Doing another non-requested review. This is a review of a controversial movie.
Very much so.
From, was it from 2019 or 2018?
I want to say it goes all the way back to late 2018.
It might be, yeah. So this was a movie that was directed by a very controversial filmmaker, Lars Von Trier.
Yes.
So my first experience finding out about Lars Von Trier is that he is the one that did the original Kingdom miniseries that Kingdom Hospital was based on.
Yep, Stephen King adapted it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's where I first became aware of him. And then after having watched that, I kind of kept an eye on him because I kept hearing about how he's kind of an aggressive and you know, out there filmmaker. He ended up making Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2. Melancholia, right. A couple of just really out there projects. And then he announced The House That Jack Built, or we started to hear about it rather, a movie starring Matt Dillon as a serial killer. And what we started to hear was that it was a really aggressive movie and that it had to be cut down, right, from the festival circuit. There was some people that were like walking out sick or something like that.
No, they were appalled by the nature of some of the violence in it, and so it got a one night only in its director's cut form across like various parts of the world, including here in the US, and then after that, home release with this like condensed theatrical cut. But then eventually
they did release the director's cut, so that's what I've got here. I went ahead and waited to watch the movie until I could pick this up, because I try not to buy things digitally because I like having the physical media.
Same.
And I don't have to worry about remembering my logins and stuff like that. So I was excited to get my hands on it because of all the hullabaloo around the movie. Yeah. I was less concerned about Lars, about what he was going to do with the movie, and more interested because of all the people talking about how it was gross and everything. And being a gore fan, I was hoping it was going to be right up my alley. So we're going to go ahead and dive into it like we talk about our movie reviews normally, our overall thoughts, then the story, the acting, the cinematography, the effects, all that good stuff in turn. And I'm going to say I really enjoyed the movie up until the last about 10-15 minutes or so, 10-12 minutes. I really actually quite enjoyed the framing of it. I enjoyed that it was straight to the point of most of what I wanted to get to, and I enjoyed the progression of Jack's, you know, craziness and incidents. And I really did enjoy the movie. It falls flat at the very end, but the rest of it is good enough where I'm glad I added it to my collection. How about for you?
I enjoyed the hell out of it, actually. The ending didn't bother me as much. I kind of had a feeling where they were going when there was just some of the discussion that's going back and forth with him and this other character.
I didn't pick up on the clues like you did.
Yeah, and then there was when the name, when he addresses the character by name at one point halfway through, I was like, I knew it. This is what I thought it was. But I mean, I could see how this movie would offend the hell out of people because it does glorify his behavior to a degree with some of the whimsy in the way that it's presented, the use of music, especially, and the David Bowie song and whatnot.
The whimsy of it is kind of what I like. I mean, that's why I like Freddy. That's why I like Chucky, is the whimsical and the terror. And there's really only two scenes that bothered me. And I know one of them that bothered you was one that I was like, the subject matter is tough. But the fact that the movie had the balls to do this... Was it the
earlier one or the later one without spoiling?
The one that involves family.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so that's
where the movie took a turn, and I'm like, man, they're going for it.
Yeah, and that's where I was like, oh, okay, now I'll bet that's probably the thing that was disgusting a lot of people. Yeah. But honestly, the fact, again, this is something that not many filmmakers would go for, this scene. You can't ruin it, but it's a hunting scene that you really can't see coming, and it gets super aggressive. It shows things that you don't expect it to show,
because you don't see the progression of Dillon's character up to that point, because you assume
it skips around in time.
It does, which is another. And this is overall thoughts, this is a very well-made movie. I love the interspersing of imagery, the discussion of the nature of art, whether it's depraved or whether it's beautiful. I love the dichotomy of the discussion, and that's what I thought elevated this to. This is high art,
This
and
is
some
art
may
house
think
serial
it's
killer
some may think
horror,
it's
yeah.
pretentious. I didn't personally. I just thought it was very masterfully thought out, and I can see why it took a number of years for this film to get shot and then in turn edited, because it is dense. There is a lot of moving pieces in this film. Great performance from Dillon. Great performance from Dillon. Maybe one of the best I've ever seen him give.
This movie couldn't have been written script-wise in the form it ended up as.
No, not at all.
It couldn't have been.
So
And
much
so
in post,
it
man.
must have been... yeah, the story was completely retooled in post, I'm sure. But it works for what it is.
Does, yeah.
And while I was watching it, I messaged our horror show message group, and I was telling Marsha, because Marsha's the big serial killer fan of our group, and so I was telling her about both Poughkeepsie tapes and this, and I was like, Marsha, you got to watch these movies. They're all about serial killers, and I think this one, I was watching House that Jack Built, might be my favorite serial killer movie I've ever watched. And even though the end stumbled for me, it
goes off the rails.
It goes off the rails, but in such a gloriously Lars Von Trier way. And the very end, I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm glad that's what happened." Because I was like,
You almost think something's gonna happen.
Something else is gonna happen, and I was like, "No, no, no!" And then the more satisfying thing happened, and so
And the song
ultimately,
afterwards was hilarious.
Ultimately, it was a satisfying ending. It just because here's the thing. They're driving at something, and you don't know what the title refers to the entire time. The House that Jack Built. You have no idea. And then finally, right before the train completely derails, you get delivery on that, but you don't get to dwell on it as long as I was hoping you would.
No.
I actually, after the end of the movie, I went back and frame by framed it to make sure I got it, because the art department went above and beyond to achieve this particular effect. And with the closest thing I can liken it to, for those of you that haven't seen it yet, if you're a fan of Hannibal, this is what Hannibal feels like. High-end art house, clever horror about a serial killer that sets up, dioramas essentially with his people, victims and stuff. So that's what this feels like. This feels like a good single episode of Hannibal, focusing on Hannibal, just removed from that whole familiar storyline. So
yeah, this is highbrow serial killer storytelling for sure, because we watch a lot of bottom of the barrel stuff that has really no substance to it.
Well, slasher
at all.
movies are serial killer movies,
Oh
technically.
yeah, true, for sure.
But yeah, I always separate them because
Well, I mean, serial killer
like
movies,
Zodiac
I would say,
and stuff
those
like that.
delve deeper into the mythos and the mindset and stuff, as opposed to just mindless killing.
Copycat movie, was one.
Zodiac, I haven't watched in a while. That's a really good one. Fincher.
What was the one with Keanu Reeves? What was it, The Watcher or something like that? The one where he played the serial killer? That is such a good one. I can't remember what it is, but it's so good. He was strangled people with the wire, right? I think, yeah. Such a great movie. So there's certain serial killer movies that are good, but this, I think, is my favorite because, again, the way they approach it, it's so systematic how they approach the movie, and I was really into that. And I did like the high art discussions. And so the movie, the story of it, it just breaks down like you're following Jack. You're hearing Jack discuss something in voiceover throughout the movie in between each what they label as incidents. So it's incident number 1, incident number 2. It's all the times that Jack would kill people, and it starts from the very first one, and it shows how he progresses. And in between each incident, we see these art discussions. You hear the voiceover of Jack talking with someone else, and you see art, and they're talking about Jack, how Jack views these terrible things as art, and how it's all subjective and all this stuff. Just really interesting, brain food conversations for kind of twisted minds, you know?
Yeah, and it also shows how over the course of the story he becomes not only more brazen and more, I guess, audacious maybe, but his neuroticism too. Like
his
there's
OCD-ness,
his OCD-ness is hilarious in that second incident where he continues going back into the home because he's worried
he
there's
keeps
a little bit of
imagining
blood.
that there's something there that he might have missed. And so he literally goes to the car to leave and goes back in probably about 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, and
really interesting.
Yeah, and then fate, for whatever reason, smiles on this piece of trash over and over and over. Like when the rain comes after that incident, I laughed so hard when I saw that happen. I'm like, man.
I was like, dude,
someone's
you're the
looking
worst at this.
this guy.
Oh, man. Yeah, but so story-wise, were you pleased with it?
I was very pleased with it. I was impressed with the structuring, as simplistic as it was, because of those I guess interludes, so to speak. That's what really elevated this, where they were talking about, I mean, I watched Cody's review of this, and he's like, people talking about grapes, man, so I don't give a crap about this. There is a deep, like, essence of allegory and just kind of, I don't know, I thought that was brilliant and interesting, and the nature of the rod, or beauty of the rod, or whatever the hell. And I also liked where they had the spotlight analogy, or the overhead light analogy, where he's like right under it, and then when he walks past it and the shadow gets bigger and smaller. That was like really interesting stuff,
that's how they
man.
explained his how
like,
he would
desire?
satiate his desire, where like as he walked, he under a spotlight is how he feels when he does the kill, and he maintains that feeling while he's under the light, but as he leaves, his shadow starts to grow, and that's his desire to do it again is growing. And then as he nears his next light, he starts to feel the warmth of it again. It's just really interestingly explained.
There's so many fascinating interludes within this, and so that's where it's of an elevated variety. So, major props to Lars. It was a passion project of his, obviously. He worked on it for many years. So
you have to be ready for a sort of a cerebral movie, though.
It's visceral.
Well, yeah, but it's a lot up here too. You have to be
exactly.
willing to listen. It's not a short movie. It was like
2.5
hours. So
long.
be ready for a sit, but you have to be in the right mindset. You don't go into it expecting like a serial killer slasher or a whodunit or like a movie where the detectives are trying to track down. That's not what this is. So as long as you go in with those expectations, knowing it's a bit of an art house serial killer movie that really delivers on the gore, then I think you're not going to be let down.
Mr. Sophistication.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting in labeling himself that. But
and the girl's like, "Are you Mr. Sophistication?" He's like, "If you want to scream, I think now is the time."
That is so. There was so many interesting scenes when she goes out to the cop and like tries to tell him
he's even like, "I'm Mr. Sophistication."
Yeah.
And the cop's like, "You're both drunk." Whatever.
Yeah, he's like, "It's me. I'm Mr. Sophistication," and like all this stuff. And I really dug it. It had a lot of the times in serial killer movies that I like Wolf Creek and stuff like that, when the guy is toying with the victims. There's a lot of that.
That scene was very much about it, especially where he's really demeaning her, but she's kind of an idiot, unfortunately. So yeah, anyway.
But so yeah, the acting I thought was tremendous through the whole thing.
Too. Yeah, everybody involved, even the I could see women specifically really being offended by this film, you know. But and in fact, when I watched it with Catherine, she was just like, "Okay, does he actually kill men?" And then, of course, there's the big thing at the end. So I'm like, "No, you see, I mean, there's
they kind of mention
here.
it in passing too."
Yeah, because he says at one point, he's like, "This isn't all of my murders. This is just what I considered some of my highest forms of art was these particular incidents." He's like, "I've killed men too, so on and so forth, but these were like some of the most prolific incidents as he looked back on his career, so to speak, and trying to refine his artistic process and approach." So
yeah, but I could see why a lot of women wouldn't like it too, because of the way
It's
some
rough,
of the women
man.
characters are portrayed too.
yes,
That
Uma
first
Thurman,
one especially.
Uma Thurman especially at the very beginning.
I didn't even realize that was Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
Honestly, until after I saw her name, I was like, "Wait, what? Oh my god!"
Yeah, and also Elvis's granddaughter was that the blondie later on in that later incident.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the one that he's drawing on and everything. And that,
Well,
Lisa Marie's daughter, I think.
I was gonna say not Lisa Marie, but it must be one generation after that.
that's her
So,
daughter.
the shot wise, I thought, the way the movie was presented, both production design wise and cinematography wise, I thought was really good. Again, they're going for a high art style, and I thought it worked in that style.
Even the setup of that final incident of sorts, and just the way all of those different bodies were laid out and stuff, and man, even that huge like walk-in freezer, whatever place where it's kind of his lair, so to speak. I mean, the design was cool. the use of messing with the bodies afterwards and stuff, and the posturing and positioning, man, I mean, just the amount of effort put into that as well, I can only imagine. So even the set design, when it gets a little wacky at the end, it still all looked very cool.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, definitely interesting because they change locations, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, effects-wise, what did you think? I mean, the effects obviously were great to me. I thought they were
brutal.
Awesome. Yeah,
brutal.
Super brutal.
Especially 3, and I think 5 is the other one that I'm thinking of. Is where
3 is the one we were talking about earlier, right? Yeah,
the hunting incident. Yeah, damn.
But even as simple as the carjack one.
Oh yeah, like the very first one.
That's super brutal. Yeah, and it like happens so fast, and it's just like, damn. Oh man. Yeah, like the brutality. That's the thing. This gore isn't just like gore for gore's sake. This gore is to emphasize brutality and after effect. You know what I mean? And they do it very, very well. It definitely sells. I mean, that working in conjunction with the art, like it's the juxtaposition of the horrifying gore to the art house of the rest of the movie,
which is where I can see you making the Hannibal comparisons very specifically because of just we're talking an intelligent killer here,
and
as
macabre,
opposed to like a brute, you know, just kind of
well, and again the macabre dioramas that he's kind of setting up, it's very very similar to what Hannibal did and stuff like that. So
are you an architect or are you an engineer? Wasn't that the back and forth?
Yeah, exactly. So
do you know the difference? No. Anyway,
but and let's, I mean, just going back a little bit to the acting, Matt Dillon really sold this thing. He was so
the best
tremendous.
things I've ever seen him in, man. This was a career-defining performance.
It really was. I don't think I've seen him in any better in anything else. I mean, what Something About Mary? What are you going to point to? You know,
boy, offhand. Nah, man. Nah,
this is the one for me. Yeah, he really nailed it and was both endearing towards the beginning when I'm like, oh, is something going to happen? Is he going to have some traumatic life event that's going to change him? No, it's just a switch that kind of flips.
And now you're making me think back to the scene with the little duckling.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Messed up since he was a child, you know, and it just...
But, and that, again, they do go back to the indicators, but again, we don't know that
It's just
first,
very brief, though. It's not like they give an extensive amount of backstory. They just they just keep it very simple, that he was messed up even since he was young, and not much explanation. They're just like, hey, this is how it is. So,
yeah. Terrifying to think that these kinds of people might actually be out there, the successful ones. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if... There are unsolved cases out there.
In that variety.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. That are fully integrated into society, but also do this.
Absolutely depraved beyond belief. Damn.
So it's a better movie than I was led to believe. I don't know. I knew it was going to be.
I was expecting either.
No, not at all. And I think that's probably why I liked it as much as I did, because it worked with this tone, whereas it might not have worked. The story might not have worked as well without this particular kind of tone.
If it was stone cold serious, I don't know if it would have been as effective with getting its points across.
Or if it went into typical slasher, like comedy here, then serious, then comedy, then serious, it wouldn't have worked that way either. So
yeah, it kept a very consistent tone.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, and so I'm really glad I ended up picking it up. Again, if you're okay with cerebral horror and you have the time and you're not gonna like be frustrated by these art house bits, like you said, like Cody did, because I did watch his review as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think you're going to enjoy this movie. So if you're the right person, give it a try. If it sounds interesting to you, give it a try. And again, maybe you're going to be like Fuego in the end. Well, the end, talking about it with you, didn't really ruin the movie. It just was such a sharp veering away from the thing that that the movie was building up to. And then they're like, no, we're going to go away from that. And then it becomes just something different that the rest of the movie just wasn't. And so that's where it kind of went off the rails for me. But ultimately, it does work as an ending to the story. So,
yeah.
I mean, any final words from you on it?
If you're brave, check it out. It's not what you think it is. That's what I will say.
Fair. All right, guys, that's going to do it for our review of The House That Jack Built. Let us know in the comments down below what you thought of it. If you did see it, or if this is going to make you more likely to watch it, be curious to know what you guys' thoughts on it are. So if you enjoyed the video, click the like button and subscribe. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias to all our patrons. I've been Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.
Yay.